So we're going to be talking about how to create a budget. This is the year for you to reevaluate where you're at with your private practice, take a look at your budget, and see how you can make sure that you're using the best resources for your private practice. If you're just starting out, know that I am a big fan of profit first, which the general concept is that any monies that you brought into your practice, 50% would go to you, 30% would go to expenses, 15% would go to taxes, and 5% would go to profit. Now, I would recommend, as always, that you talk to an accountant, make sure that those numbers make sense for your state, for, your individual circumstances. Some people, like if you are married to somebody that has a W-2, for instance, that number may look a little bit different. If you are, single, in a state with an income tax, that number may look a little bit higher. So really depends on a couple of things, but those are general ideas of how you can set this overarching budget for your practice. And then usually people have questions about that 30%, right? And so you want to think about things that are included in that 30%, rent. Maybe you don't have rent right now because you're virtual. Maybe you gave up your office. Things like electronic health records, things that are monthly, right? So when you think about what do I have to pay monthly, maybe pay a Psychology Today, maybe you have a biller that helps you, a phone system. I want you to make a list of all of those things that are monthly expenses. And then I want you to make a list of all those things that are yearly expenses, right? We have to renew maybe our CEUs every year. We're not necessarily spending, $500 a month every single month on CEUs, but maybe one month you're taking a particular course and you want to budget for that. Then you want to take a look at all the things like that you don't necessarily think about. I put that in like a miscellaneous column. We just installed, for instance, new locks in one of our offices. That was a cost. It wasn't something I had anticipated, so it wasn't like a CEU or liability insurance, which comes once a year, but it wasn't something that was monthly. So then there was this like miscellaneous budget. I think it's really important that you accurately plan for what your year is going to look like. I recommend that you plan out for 1 year. I think that's really a good basis. You can really see where you're going. You can even project for growth during that time. So if you're just starting out and you think that you're going to grow at, let's say, 20% every single month, you can project, you can watch your expenses during that time. When you are just starting out, you have really two options. You can either bootstrap it and have no expenses and you're like, I am going to see clients. I'm not going to spend a lot of money on anything. And then I'm going to build up some cash reserves and then maybe pay for some things that I want. Other people are like, I'm going to hire a private practice coach. I'm going to take courses. I'm going to get trainings. I'm going to, deck out my office. I'm really going to do a lot of things and spend some money up front. I don't know that there's no right or wrong, right? This is not black and white. You have to know your own personal goals, wishes, finances. There's a lot of reasons why people do things a certain way. And so don't let anybody tell you must spend $5,000 on a particular course to get your practice up and running if that's not in line maybe with your long-term goals. So for me, when I'm doing budgeting, I'm always going back to my business plan. I'm always going back to my strategic plan. I'm always thinking about what are my goals, right? Is it to start a practice? Then I'm going to make a list of all the things that are necessary to start a practice. And I might, when I first started, I definitely was like more of a bootstrapper. I didn't spend a lot of money on coaches or certain things, sort of like initially. I didn't like have this really, I put together my first website, right? Like most people do. I don't recommend it. Please don't spend some money on that. But I think that it's really important for you to identify what your goals are. So if you sat down and did some goals for this year, your New Year's resolutions, your business plan, whatever you want to call it, your budget should be directly aligned to that. And sometimes your budget items may be higher. Your expenses may be higher if you're in a growth phase. Every time we grow, my budget like explodes and then the revenue increases. And so then it balances out. And I'm like, oh, okay, this like made sense to grow, right? And so it's the same when you're starting out, you might have a lot of expenses or you might say, okay, I'm going to put $500 towards starting my practice. This is my budget. And then eventually the same thing, you'll watch your revenue grow. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to make sure that you're managing your budget in a healthy way. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, TherapyNotes. If you're looking for an electronic health record that's really full service, that is one of your monthly budget items, should be an electronic health record, I want you to check out TherapyNotes. They help you with billing. They help you send reminders to your clients. You can write your notes. You can do all of your intake paperwork there. You can do telehealth there. A lot of functions. And then the best thing is that you can pick up the phone, you can call them, and you can get the support that you need. That's one of the best things that really makes them stand apart. So I want you to check out TherapyNotes. So if you have been in private practice a little while, you have a budget and you're realizing that maybe you want to cut some expenses, I think that this is, again, the first of the year, the beginning of the year is a really good time to take a look at that. I'm going to say it, I make an Excel sheet of all my projected expenses for the years. I account for things like growth. I account for things like months, maybe like December, we send gifts. We, have a holiday party, or we didn't have that this year, but we did some other things. And so like December is like my line item for, certain things might be a little bit higher. I'm trying to think if there's any other months besides really December, but there may be other periods of time when you have, a higher month. So make sure that you account for that. But then I want you to look for places that you can cut, right? Like what is really necessary, what's in line with your business plan. So maybe you're thinking about doing a particular training, right? And that training, while I'm an advocate for training, I think we need to do training. I also think we need to do training when it makes sense for our practice. You may decide that, like for instance, there was a training coming up and I was considering doing it. It didn't work out because of some timing. But then I realized I had already renewed my license and that I didn't need any CEUs for this time. And I didn't need that training. It was just like something I was interested in. And so it didn't sort of like align with my goals. Like it didn't fall in place. And so I decided not to do that training. And then I decided to use that money for something else, right? And then there are times like I think that we want to, invest in things for our business. And so maybe you save up for a little while for those things instead of going out and buying like a new couch, for instance. If you have the extra cash, maybe you save up for 6 months I don't have to teach you about saving necessarily, but I want you to think about being flexible with your budget and identifying ways that you maybe can look for, things that are not in line with your business plan. So I don't want you just to cut to like say, okay, I'm not going to have, a phone system because that is, Amanda said, cut your expenses, but is it in line for your business plan? If you're thinking about growing your practice, if you want a virtual assistant, having a second phone line is going to be, really kind of like important, or like some kind of virtual, phone line. So always go back to your goals, go back to your business plan when creating a budget. That's why I'm a big fan. Business plan first, then budget, then we'll create your marketing plans and take you to having a smart practice. Well, that's it for today. I'm here most days of the week answering your questions. I'll see you soon, everybody. Bye.